What's up, folks? Mike for CMCC Builds here. Today is another special episode and a huge honor for me, as Bilbron from Bilbrons Dragons takes on the level 14 Gauntlet. I've been a subscriber to Bilbron's channel for some time now, so I was incredibly excited when he agreed to do a run. Bilbron is an active member in the Gauntlet Discord, where Gauntlet runs are happening daily. We have multiple Gauntlets there as well, many of which will be featured in future videos. So everyone should check that out, and there is a Patreon for those that really wish to throw their support the Gauntlet's way. I'm very proud of the work our team is doing over there, so please check that out. Some quick thank yous before we get started. Special thanks to 2 Minute Tabletops and Bearworks for the maps featured here today. To RT, who designed the encounters. John, who DM'd the entirety of today's adventure. I believe the entire thing took like 10.5 hours, and they did it in one sitting. Machines. And of course, a huge thank you to Bilbron, who piloted the build for this Gauntlet run. Details of that build will be released on his channel, so be sure to check that out. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Oddfather, Ludic, BCR, and Gil for their hard work and support on all the Gauntlets and in the Discord. Now, let's set the scene, shall we? A Mind Flayer Arcanist has subverted a temple dedicated to a sea deity and is using it as a magical power source. This desecration has provoked the angry undead in the temple catacombs. Deciding it's not worth his time, the Illithid flooded the lower caverns and denied anyone access to the bottom levels. The hero and 2 sidekicks need to stop the Mind Flayer's ritual before it concludes in 4 hours. That means long rests are out of the question, and short rests must be used judiciously. Having heard the tragic tales of Nuke the Wizard, Barb the Zealot, and Quasar the Swordlockadin, another champion rises to the challenge. This one gifted the Skin of Stone and Lava from his genie patron, Molbron Daolock Stone, as he's known to his friends, a straight-class Daolock, who brings with him the friendly sidekick faces of the Orc Warrior and Kenku Expert, accompanied by his trusty Infamiliar, Fargar, and 7 tiny servants. The would-be heroes steel themselves for the horrors that lie ahead. Each character has been afforded 2 potions of healing, and Molbron holds a +1 Rod of the Pack Keeper, the Warrior wields a +1 Great Axe, and the Expert uses a +1 Shortbow. Apart from these items, a standard set of mundane items is all they possess. As a contrast to the previous runs, Bilbron was given unlimited downtime rather than the standard single day of prep. This allowed him to cast Immovable Object on the clothing and armor of the Warrior, the Expert, his Infamiliar, and himself. He also cast Permanent Image via Limited Wish on his 7 tiny servants, and Water Breathing on everybody. If that seems like an incredible amount of prep, well, yeah, it is. We wanted to see what he could do with the restraints removed, and to top it off, John also allowed Pass Without a Trace to be cast pre-combat in this initial encounter. If you're curious about the official rules and setup of the Gauntlet, they can be found in the rules section of the Gauntlet Discord. I wouldn't waste your time asking people in the YouTube comments, as most of them will just point you back to the Discord. With that, Molbron and his team stealth into the catacombs through the knee-high water. Roll initiative. But first, I want to let you know about today's sponsor, once again, Describe. You may already know about Describe's team of professional writers with over 10,000 box descriptions of pretty much everything you could ever want. In fact, this is such an amazing tool to use if you wanted to, incorporate one of the Gauntlet adventures into your own games, but want to spice it up with some extra flavor. Describe is perfect for just that. You want to describe the walk down to the catacombs, or a particular undead enemy combatant? Describe has it all. They also have high-quality interactive maps that include area descriptions, and the Sonic library with over 1,900 RPG sound effects, ambiances, and pieces of music that can be played at the table or streamed to your virtual player. There are only so many times you can play that Witcher 3 combat theme on repeat, so if you want to make your own Gauntlet or full adventure, this makes it so incredibly easy to do just that. In fact, we're considering using Describe to make an entire Gauntlet. It's genuinely that good. Check out the link below, describe.com/CMCC. If you use that link, you get 10% off your first payment, and it really helps me out in the process. Okay, back to the game. Strong rolls for the heroes, with the Mummy and Water Weirds both having passive perceptions of 10. Molbron and each ally auto-succeeds their stealth checks. The Water Weirds, on the other hand, roll a 7 for their stealth and are noticed by the incoming party. To make things a bit more difficult, DM John plays this map as completely dark rather than dim light. But Molbron is able to see through that darkness and spot the mummies in the distance with his Devil's Sight. A quick note, due to the number of tiny servants summons in the Familiar, you may see servants stacked on top of medium-sized creatures. Assume in that case that the servants are occupying their own square. For clarity, I kept them spread out, when in reality, they were often stacked into a few squares. Round 1, the Weirds go. But They were surprised. At the very edge of his Eldritch Blast range, Bilbron takes shots at the weirds who can't see him due to their limited range on their blind sight, so it's a straight roll. All 3 hit for 35 damage. With a bonus action, he casts Magic Stone. Formulating a plan, he steps back and commands his allies to keep together.
I've seen the enemy team. They're at extreme range. Stay in tight formation and let them come to us.
The Kenku and the Orc each slide forward and take ranged attacks as straight rolls. The advantage from being hidden is countered by the distance to the enemies and the weird's own invisibility. Since advantage and disadvantage don't stack, straight rolls. All 3 attacks hit for 26 damage. Fargar takes the dodge action. Get used to this one, folks. The mummies are surprised. The tiny servants pick up the magic stones and wait to follow the command to attack nearby enemies, and those Fargar identifies with a point. Round 2. The water weirds dash toward their newly spotted prey. Bilbron blasts the incoming weirds. The first attack hits, killing the injured elemental. The next 2 blasts only deal 5 damage as one misses the target. With his bonus action, Bilbron uses his elemental gift to gain a fly speed of 30 feet that lasts for 10 minutes. Bilbron floats into the air and above the Orc warrior. To avoid confusion, I'll keep Bilbron's token off to the side of the Orc. The Kenku takes a shot with his crossbow and misses with a nat 1. He then rushes to the other side and bonus action hides behind the rocks, auto-succeeding because it passed without a trace. And to be clear, when I say auto-succeed, I don't mean they can't fail. I mean, in this particular case, they can't fail because of the attribute bonuses of the combatants. The Orc tosses 2 more javelins, landing both for 19 damage, then slides back. The invisible imp Fargar takes the dodge action and slides over towards the Kenku. The zombies lumber closer to their intruders. The tiny servants let loose their magical stones. All 3 hit for 24 damage, and the servants huddle together next to the rest of their allies. Round 3. Water rushes into the chamber, filling it another 5 feet or so. The hunter sharks make their appearance, sniffing out blood in the water. The water weird cuts through the water, slicing toward the warrior. A natural 20 hits for 19 damage, but more importantly, the orc is grappled. The weird drags the orc into deeper water, attempting to drown him. Fortunately for the warrior, the water breathing spell that was precast allows him to breathe without issue. Bilbron's turn. Seeing his ally pulled away from the party and the appearance of the hunter sharks to the west, Bilbron raises his arms into the air, casting Wall of Stone around the heroes. He's careful to place the walls directly through the tiny servants and the orc space, shunting all 3 inside the protection of the stone walls. Bilbron forms the stone wall with crenellations to allow for attacks outside the walls, and he brings the protective barrier as high as possible, which leaves about 2.5 feet of space between the ceiling and the wall. Not enough space for a large creature to fit through. And with that, despite the efforts of all the map 1 creatures to break through the wall, Bilbron whittles away at each attacker, methodically removing them of those pesky hit points. The Trolls were hit with a synaptic static from Bilbron, sapping their ability to hit. As the creatures break through sections of the wall, and with the Hydra appearing in the distance, Bilbron recasts Wall of Stone to make it tighter and thicker, keeping his team safely tucked inside. As the Hydra swims through the water, eager to make a dent in the stone walls between it and its prey, Bilbron casts Force Cage on the Hydra, effectively removing it from combat. The 7th level spell is concentration free, meaning Bilbron can maintain control of the Wall of Stone. Despite Team Monster making moderate progress breaking through the 6+ inches of stone walls after 23 rounds of combat, Bilbron and his friends win this encounter about as easily as we've seen thus far. Gathering as many arrows and javelins as they can find, the heroes swim to the exit and out of the water. Bilbron uses his Rod of the Packkeeper to regain a level 5 Warlock slot. Trudging along, they enter another chamber. A cold chill fills the air. This time we roll initiative with no surprise. Round 1. The expert, too far to use the helpful bonus action, fires off a shortbow attack, landing for 9 damage. Bilbron, with his recovered pack slot, casts Summon Aberration, choosing a Beholderkin flavored to look like a flying stone golem, in line with the Stone Daolock theme. It then uses its eye ray to fire 2 attacks at the Wraith, hitting with both and dealing 27 psychic damage. The Wraith's turn. The nearest flies at the Kenku, reaching out with a life drain attack. A natural 20, this deals 8d8 plus 3, with the potential to reduce the expert's hit point max if he fails a con save. The expert rolls a 21, but still takes 33 damage, a big hit in round 1. The remaining 2 Wraiths dash to get the party within their grasp, functionally surrounding them. The warrior slides over to the damaged Wraith and takes 2 swings with his great axe, both hit for a combined 36 damage. The Wraith disperses into nothingness with a wail. As the tiny servants turn, a note on setup and strategy here. The 7 tiny servants have been split into 2 factions, a melee unit and a ranged unit. The 3 members of the ranged unit wait for Bilbron to cast Magic Stone and will then retrieve the 3 stones and attack nearby enemies with them. The remaining 4 servants make up the melee unit and wait to attack enemies that have approached the party unless otherwise directed. In this case, with no stones to fetch, the ranged unit dodges, and the melee unit surrounds an incoming wraith and attacks. One attack lands with a 24 for 5 damage. Round 2. The expert bonus action helps and then takes a shot at the wounded wraith. 25 hits for 20 damage. Bilbron Eldritch blasts the nearest wraith with disadvantage due to their proximity to each other. Both hit for 20 damage, and he pushes the wraith back 10 feet with repelling blast. No longer in melee, Bilbron turns to the other wraith and shoots him for 8 force damage.
Foolish undead! To the grave with you!
With his bonus action, he casts Magic Stone. The Beholderkin uses its eye rays on the wraith, hitting with both for 29 psychic damage. Screaming, the wraith melts into nothingness. The final wraith glides over to Bilbron and attempts to drain his life, unsuccessfully.
I'm a prince of the elements, fool.
Fargar, the invisible imp, dodges. The eager warrior takes another 2 slices at the adjacent wraith, both landing for 33 slashing. The ranged tiny servants retrieve the stones and attack the wraith. 2 of the 3 hit, including a critical for 18 damage. The melee unit surrounds the undead spirit and peppers it with slam attacks, killing it with ease.
These foolish undead think they can destroy us. We are of the elemental plane.
At the conclusion of combat, as the team moves through the chamber, a ghost appears. Pausing for an attack that never comes, Bilbron attempts to persuade the ghost to allow them to rest.
You, ghost. You are a remnant of this temple of the sea deity. You have no love for this mind flayer. Stand aside. Let us rest. Recover my strength, and we will cleanse this infestation from your temple.
Despite the strong argument and the Kenku's help, along with a luck point and a +9 modifier, Bilbron manages to roll below 10 on all 3 rolls. The ghost moves aside, but won't allow for a safe short rest. They must instead recover its family heirloom in a nearby chamber. Then and only then will it provide a protected short rest for the party. Acknowledging the ghost's offer, Bilbron and team move out of the chamber as they continue their journey. With a smirk, Bilbron looks to his 2 sidekicks, pulls out his genie's vessel, an unremarkable stone ring, and the 3 adventurers vanish. Before the ring falls to the ground, the imp flies past and scoops it out of the air. He then travels along to the next chamber, Beholderkin and tiny servants in tow, as the allies take a 10-minute short rest inside the plain stone ring. During that short rest, the warrior uses 6 hit dice to recover 46 hit points, and the expert uses 5 to regain 34. But more importantly, this 10-minute short rest has allowed Bilbron to recover all of his pack slots, while also maintaining concentration on his Summon Aberration spell, which has nearly 50 minutes remaining on its duration. Fargar the Imp pokes his head into a widening tunnel that opens into a larger chamber. He quickly alerts Bilbron, who reappears from the genie's vessel, along with the Orc and Kenku. Bilbron hands his tiny servants 3 magic stones. The Will-O-Wisp roll a 28 for their stealth. No one in Bilbron's party notices them, but the Poltergeist rolls a 5. The entire party picks up on the sound of their movement, alerted to danger ahead. With Pass Without a Trace long gone, the heroes don't even attempt to stealth. Round 1. The Wisps move in towards the intruders, blocking their path through the chamber. Invisible and hidden, they wait. Those that didn't dash ready actions to attack. The expert creeps forward, unsure of what's to come. He readies an action. The warrior proceeds forward with far less caution, moving next to a wisp that takes a reaction to shock him, and when it does attack, it's no longer hidden or invisible, triggering the Kenku's readied action. The wisp misses with a 17, but the Kenku does not, dealing 12 piercing. Now seeing a target, the orc slashes with his great axe. Both attacks hit, extinguishing the wisp's light. The tiny servants move into position and ready their actions. The unit on the western portion of the wall ready melee attacks, while the rear servants ready their ranged stone attacks. I've consolidated each group into a single square and added dots to help identify the number of servants. Fargar flies forward and takes the dodge action. While he's invisible, the dodge action doesn't do much, but it does help preserve disadvantage in case he's spotted by enemies with special senses or if he loses invisibility. Bilbron pushes ahead but doesn't see any enemies. With no targets for Eldritch Blast, he casts Minor Illusion to extend that rocky outcropping around him. With a bonus action, he casts Magic Stones again. The Beholderkin Stone Golem floats ahead unknowingly right into the group of Will-O-Wisps, who let loose their readied shocks. 2 of the 4 hit for 9 lightning damage. The summon fires back with his eye rays at disadvantage due to being in melee, and hits with 1 for 15 psychic damage. The first Poltergeist moves in and attempts to telekinetically thrust Bilbron into the chamber ceiling. Bilbron, with the immovable object cast at 6th level on his armor, laughs off the feeble attempt.
Foolish creatures.
With a DC of 28, it's impossible for any Geist to move any of the allies. A second Geist moves and learns the same lesson with the Orc. A third Undead Spirit, watching his effete companions from range, moves into melee, triggering multiple attacks from the Tiny Servants. 2 of the 4 hit, but for only half damage for a total of 4 bludgeoning. The range unit also gets off their readied actions. All 3 magic stones hit for the full 18 magical bludgeoning, which is just enough to kill it. The 4th Geist floats closer, trying to slam the tiny creatures that attacked its fellow Fallen. The Tiny Servant's roll of 2 will be difficult to lose to, but the Geist 2 does just that. Nothing happens. The final Geist passes through the wall and attacks another Servant. A 14 Charisma check beats the 11th Strength check, and the Servant is tossed from halfway up the wall, the Servants do have a climb speed, into the 20-foot high ceilings and falls the full 20 feet down, taking a total of 10 bludgeoning. Just enough to destroy the Servant as it crumbles into lifeless silver and rock components. Round 2. The Wisps, already surrounding the Stone Golem Beholderkin, blast away with their shock attack, dealing 23 damage. The Kenku uses the help action as a bonus action against the wounded Wisp, then lets loose an arrow for plenty to kill it. They don't even roll the 2d6 because it dies from the 12 piercing. The warrior stomps forward and slashes at the Wisp within range, hitting for 16 damage. The melee unit clambers past the Orc and bashes the injured Wisp for only 2 bludgeoning. The range unit waits for their magic stones to be replenished. Bilbron did cast magic stone, he just didn't pass them off to the servants. Fargar dodges. Shocker. Bilbron fires Eldritch Blasts through his illusory rock covering. The first blast is enough to kill the nearest Wisp. The next 2 blasts are directed at a Geist. Both land despite disadvantage, dealing 19 damage and repelling it back 20 feet into the next room. He bonus action casts Magic Stone again, and then hands off to the Beholderkin, who double eye-raise a Geist, killing it despite disadvantage. The Poltergeists try to telekinetically smash the servants to pieces. The first servant rolls a nat 20 for a 17 total, saving it from 1 Geist. The next resists a second thrust with a 10, and the final servant rolls a -1, so it auto-fails. It's thrown into the ceiling and shatters on the ground after taking 12 total damage. The injured Poltergeist darts off into the distance. Round 3. The Will-O-Wisp shock the Beholderkin. The first lands for 10 damage, dropping the summon to only 8 hit points. It needs this next attack to miss, and fortunately, it does, because with a damage roll of 14, that would have been it for the Aberrant Spirit. The Expert uses the help bonus action on a Wisp and shoots it for 17 damage. The warrior scoots over and finishes the job, even though it missed its first advantaged attack. He pushes over to the edge, putting himself in between his allies and the undead. The ranged servant unit pelts the remaining Wisp with magical stones, dealing 20 damage. The melee unit moves in to put an end to the Wisp, but it misses both attacks. Fargar dodges, and Bilbron blasts away at the remaining Wisp, missing all 3 attacks. He recasts Magic Stone to replenish the ranged unit's munitions. The Beholderkin dodges in an attempt to stay alive. The Geist's turn. The first telekinetically thrusts a servant, who rolls a natural 20 for a 17.
17, baby. These strong-ass tiny servants. Hopefully that's good enough. No! Oh, how Titanic battle! He's holding on by his little legs, and he just gets ripped away and takes...
A 19 will do it. 12 damage is enough to reduce the servant to silver and dust. The second Wraith thrusts the final melee servant, who rolls a -2, auto-failing the contested check. But after being thrown into the ceiling and falling to the floor, the tiny servant perks its head up. It's not done yet. That momentary reprieve, though, is halted when the final Geist moves around the corner and attempts a thrust, but a roll of 16 is enough. Round 4. The final Wisp shocks the last melee servant, but misses with a 12. The Expert pushes 5 feet forward to take the help action against the furthest Geist and shoots it for 14 damage. The warrior swipes at the Wisp, extinguishing it with 10 damage. He turns and attacks the Geist with a straight roll from help for 9 total damage, including a d6 extra from the Expert, killing that one as well. The ranged servants, using their 60-foot blind sight, hurl stones at the Geist, all 3 hitting for 24, enough to end the undead. The melee servant hangs tight, waiting for an enemy to approach. Bilbron's turn, and he destroys the Poltergeist with his first blast. Taking a moment to breathe, Bilbron helps the Kenku search for the heirloom to get a short rest. And with a 19, they're unable to find it. Bilbron and his team exit the chamber, down a few tiny servants, but otherwise doing alright. With full health and no spell slots burned, Bilbron readies himself for the final leg of their journey, the Arcanist's desecrated temple. How will he fare? Find out in the final installment of Bilbron Takes on the Gauntlet. Thanks, folks. If you liked what you saw, please consider supporting the channel. My Patreon is linked in the description below. Otherwise, a like or subscribe would be amazing, just like you. See you here next time.